Today on 6PR, this is Gareth Parker.
I have in the studio a special guest. Her name is Jo Morris, and she's heavily involved with the charity That Is Important, and I'll let her explain what it's all about, other than to say that it is about the threat of asbestosis, which, despite the historical nature of asbestos mining operations and asbestos products in particularly our building industry, doesn't necessarily mean that that threat has gone away entirely. Jo, good morning.
Good morning, Gareth. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Where does your history with this cause begin?
Well, it's been quite a journey the last 8-9 years. Prior to 2010, I knew very little about the risks of asbestos. I didn't really think it was still an ongoing issue, actually, and I couldn't even pronounce mesothelioma. So when Dad was diagnosed in 2010, February 2010, it was a shock, to say the least, once we got our head around it. And It slowly dawned on me over time that we're going to lose our father just through the job that he did. And being such a hard-working, fun, family guy, that just seemed pretty harsh. He hadn't done anything to deserve this.
So what was his job?
He was a builder. Been in the building industry for 47 years before he retired.
And had he had any ill health during his career?
No, but he'd had a lot of exposure to asbestos. He was the apprentice in Bustleton. At the end of the day, they used to head to the beach to wash all the dust off.
Is that what they used to do?
Yeah, and most of that dust, he would have been sweeping up the dust off the factory floor every day. He was covered in it.
Yeah.
Completely oblivious. They had no idea. The workers had no idea back then of the risks.
And that's a common story, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's a common story, and it's especially common in Western Australia because of Wittenoom, and I think it's probably true to say we used asbestos more than most places.
Absolutely. We actually have the highest rates of mesothelioma in the world, Gareth.
As a result of that.
And probably the most in situ asbestos of all the states. So WA, it's certainly left a legacy here.
Talk about that feeling of it not being fair.
Oh, man, Dad was given 6 to 9 months to live, and took us that long to get our heads around it. By October that year, he was literally on his deathbed, and we were told he wouldn't make it to Christmas. Through nothing short of a miracle, Dad literally bounced back and ended up having 7 years in total. Wow. In that time, he announced in May 2012, while still not completely well, half-collapsed lung, breathless, I'm doing a fundraising walk from Kalgoorlie to Perth. So although there's 4 daughters, I was the silly sucker that walked alongside him. We actually ended up doing 3 fundraising walks. But it was over a beer at the Calabarin pub that Dad was challenged to write his memoir, which is a pretty unique story because not very many people live long enough to write their story once they've been diagnosed with mesothelioma. So 2015, Reflections Through Reality was launched.
So is that the name of the foundation?
That's actually the name of the book,
yep.
But it became a catalyst to setting up a foundation of the same name, which we refer to as Reflections.
And what does it hope to achieve? Because I think your observation that you thought you didn't know much about asbestosis or mesothelioma until it affected you personally, thought it was in the past.
Yes, absolutely. And just to clarify, Gareth, for your information, it's often confused. Asbestosis is a lung condition.
Yep.
You can actually, as awful as it is, you can live with that for quite a long time. Mesothelioma is in the lining of the lungs and it is terminal. But either way, they're all from asbestos and there's just far too much of it. So Reflections, we're reducing the impact of asbestos on the community. Our 3 main aims: we support and connect fellow sufferers of asbestos-related disease. We run a support group. We increase awareness of the ongoing risks, and we promote research into better treatment outcomes for sufferers.
We'll go through each of those causes because I think they're interesting. The importance of peer support, of connecting survivors or connecting people who unfortunately won't survive. What's important to that? Absolutely.
It's crucial. Asbestos-related disease, although one person passes away on average every 12 hours in Australia of just mesothelioma, let alone the other asbestos-related diseases, it's not well known, it's not well talked about, and there's not a lot of support for it. Well, there hasn't been. Yeah. So Dad actually started the support group before we even had a foundation. Having his story, it provided hope for people. And people wanted to connect in with that hope. They wanted his miracle. We've continued that support group, and it is It's a really important thing.
So that's the peer support aspect. Current issues. What's the third wave?
Well, the third wave, unfortunately, I mean, the first wave, like you said yourself at the beginning, we mined it, we built with it, now we're tearing it down. So the third wave are the DIYers, often who do this ignorantly, and the tradies. Interesting story, personal story. My son started an electrical pre-app a couple of years ago, and when he pulled out his white card out of his wallet, I said, "Oh, what did you learn about asbestos?" And I was pretty disappointed at his answer, nothing. So that actually triggered long story short, initiated a review of the curriculum, of the apprentice curriculum, and through the Construction Training Fund, I'm very pleased to say, there is now a component that's available that's relevant, contemporary, something that the younger guys can switch into.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that haven't heard of it. There's been sort of a bit of a gap of information about it.
I guess for the older tradies, they know it because they live the reality. But if you're a young guy or girl going on a site in your teens or 20s, it's a foreign concept.
Absolutely. And they need to take it seriously. Unfortunately, there's a bit of a swing there because the older guys that are aware of it can be complacent.
Right.
And they can then have that attitude, she'll be right. I've been working with it for 40 years. Look at me.
Yeah.
But why run the risk? It's really not worth it.
There is plenty of good best practice guidelines about how to handle this stuff, isn't there?
Yes, there is. I think personally there should be more governance around it, more it has to happen rather than this is what should happen.
So less a recommendation, more a requirement.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then the last part I'm really interested in, and for the 700 people a year who die of it, they're interested in it too, the research story.
Well, in Western Australia, we're very fortunate to have some of the world's leading experts at the National Centre of Asbestos-Related Disease. We've got Professor Anna Nowak at the moment in charge up there. There's a number of amazing experts in this area. We were really privileged it was actually Dad's birthday, September 2016, to hand over the actual big check to Professor Bruce Robinson's work, and we funded a research fellow in that area. So that was exciting to do, but there's still so much to do in that area.
There's a particular event coming up next month.
There is.
What is it? It's got a great name.
Well, sort of segueing from the curriculum component that we looked at, I needed an event that would be unique to our foundation and something that would appeal to tradies rather than your typical gala event that they didn't really want to frock up for or whatever. This one is Steeltoes and Stilettos.
Right.
And the idea is you dob in and sponsor a tradie who walks the catwalk with a model on the night.
I see. Now, does tradie wear the steel caps or the stilettos?
Well, for the lucky tradies that end up on the runway, they get a pair of steel blue boots. So they're going to want, and they can keep those.
Okay.
But we've got some gorgeous professional models lined up for them to help them along their way. So it's going to be a lot of fun and games in the heart of Northbridge Saturday week.
Well, that's not a bad little incentive for them. You had many people sign up?
We have. We could do with some more. We could always do with some more. So it's very easy to do. They just jump on the webpage and sign themselves up and share with their community what they're doing and get their support.
And if people just want to go on for a look and a laugh?
Absolutely. Well, they can jump on and donate, and that would obviously. So we're very, very privileged to be partnered with ANZ Enviro, who are actually hazardous materials experts specialising in asbestos removal, Steel Blue Boots, ABN Group, Clipsal by Snyder, and Planet Acoustics and Architecture. So through their support, we're able to say that every dollar that the tradies raise will go to the cause, and that will be raising awareness for tradies.
So the event's Saturday week, 9th of March, in where exactly in Northbridge?
Brand new location, Coconut Grove Bar. It's a funky little place.
I haven't been there yet.
Oh, you must. What are you doing on the 9th?
Well, I'll check my diary. It's called Steeltoes and Stilettos. If people want to either participate, donate, help out, where should they go?
They should go to www.steeltoes.org.au. They can also follow the event on Facebook at Steeltoes, and on Instagram, Steeltoes_Stilettos.
And of course, the not-for-profit organisation called Reflections, which will continue to do its great work. Jo, thank you for coming in. Appreciate you explaining it to us.
Thank you, Gareth. Pleasure meeting you. See you on the 9th.
We'll try our best for sure. Jo Morris from Reflections. Check all those details out online.